Thank you, Mary Agnes, for getting us all organized and set up. I absolutely love to do these product showcases because, for my community, I don't think you realize how much fun I have and how often I'm talking to these amazing, innovative people that are creating the products that we love to share with you. And especially the team at Eaton Hemp. I got to meet them in New York City before everything changed at Joe and the Juice, and have a great coffee and just talk about how we can really move the hemp industry forward. I love Eaton Hemp and all of the innovative ideas they're having with their own personal growth and their business plans, but also with some really neat products. So Bryan from Eaton Hemp is working with us today, but every member of that team is so knowledgeable and so interesting that they ended up coming to my cannabis industry party, I think it was the same evening we met, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was.
And so they were just a great addition to an already really remarkable community in New York, doing great things for cannabis and hemp. And so, Bryan, I think everybody knows my story. My brother got very sick and had a very complicated death due to colon cancer. And then I realized, after taking care of other people after he passed away, that I probably could have helped him with using cannabinoid formulations. And that got me thinking about hemp and all of the value of CBD. And that's how I got involved and started shooting all these videos. What's your personal story that brought you to the hemp community and to Eaton Hemp in particular?
Man, it's definitely a roundabout one, but I would say it started back about 20 years ago after I'd graduated college. I was working in the advertising industry in New York City, and I was just trying to prove myself, just going nonstop, burning the candle at both ends, like most of us do in today's day and age. And my health took a little bit of a backseat. I've always been a very avid exerciser and just trying to stay in peak performance. And once I let it slip, I went for a routine checkup at the doctor's office, and they told me that they found an autoimmune disease called sarcoidosis, which you probably know what it is. I had no idea. And at the time, it was asymptomatic. And they said, look, you have a 50-50 chance that it's going to progress and be symptomatic, or it will stay asymptomatic and pretty much go away, and you'll never have to worry about it. But when they handed me the documentation and I looked at the, side effects right out of the page, it was very surreal. It was like a movie. It floated off the page and it said sudden death. And I was just like, whoa. And so, spoiler, right, alert, I never progressed into a symptomatic case and it went away. But in that moment, it gave me this point of reflection where I was really questioning how I was living my life and how I wanted to change that. And so that really set me down this path. It really set me down a spiritual path, but I started meditating, being much more conscious of my breath and just my body system. As physically active as I was so disconnected from my body. And this is something that really connects to our approach at Eaton Hemp and my personal philosophy on wellness and medicine and nutrition is, really getting in tune with the body and being able to listen to what it's doing, what it's responding to, how it's responding, and, do the dance with it. There's no cookie cutter answer to any one person's, everybody's issues. Everyone is individual, and the more in touch we are, the more we can play with that. And so that's kind of the backstory. Then I was, I started a branding agency that focused on holistic brands that were values-driven organizations. And while I was doing that for over a 10-year period, Dan and Mark came to me. Dan and Mark are my partners at Eaton Hemp. They both own the farm up in the town of Eaton. And when we connected, they were like, look, we started growing hemp. And at that time, hemp was illegal. They got seeds in the ground as the first farm and they were helping to rewrite legislation, which eventually passed. But armed DEA agent was there when they were planting the seeds the first season. Very crazy and wild situation that's continuously evolved. But they had, started growing it as a cover crop, then started learning about its nutritional benefits, where I came in the picture. I eat mainly vegan lifestyle, certified yoga instructor. So the products that fit very well with my, my background and philosophy. And so we started playing around the hemp food space at the same time CBD started coming about. And we were looking at it, but from afar, there was a lot of confusion there. And as much as there is now, it was even murkier back then. And so we really wanted to find an ideal partner around CBD. And we'll get more into that. This is a long-winded response. But, that's what led me to really going head in on hemp and CBD, and haven't looked back. It's just, it's such
I have to tell you, every time I'm dealing with a company that's so high integrity, it comes back to that personal story. And I love I can't remember the name of that woman, the doctor who calls CBD the exit drug, that it's the drug that takes you out of all of the Western medicine models that you were trying to use to get things under control, and finally gets things under control in a very natural way. And your product, so high integrity, very well made, and then on top of that, functioning as a great exit nutritional strategy for all kinds of patients. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on the product showcase. And obviously, with a very rapidly growing brand, you don't have a lot of time to just sit around and chat. So we appreciate your time.
This is some of the best use of my time. I'm CEO of the company, and it's crazy nonstop. But for us, being able to connect with our customers and potential customers, we see ourselves as an educational company. And so being able to get people informed, because there's so much confusion out there.
Sure.
The best thing that we could do. So I'm thrilled.
Well, let's dig right in. I want to say hi to Leanna, who did a shout out to us in the chat. And then I also just ask you, can you just talk to our community a bit? I mean, this community is pretty savvy, so we don't have to go too basic, but can you talk to us a little bit about isolates, CBD isolates versus broad or full spectrum?
Yeah, sure. I think let's start with broad and full spectrum, because if we're looking at it as a spectrum, we have full spectrum, broad, and then isolate. Right. And so full spectrum means that the product, the CBD, is made and nothing is removed from it. The next step down, when you have broad spectrum, you're taking out the THC. And so this is for people who are very concerned about getting a false positive on a drug test because it's in there. It usually doesn't happen, but we have people that are in law enforcement or professional athletes, Olympians. Actually, it's funny, most of the Olympians still use the full spectrum, but some people are just more concerned about it, and that's the main reason there.
Well, the issue, I think, is because you're measuring in drug testing the carboxylated THC. And for most drug tests, you have to have a level of 50, it's micrograms per something, that in order for it to test positive. So you can have a tiny amount of THC in your system, like you typically have with a broader full spectrum, and not have any problems. Yeah. But in people who are in a zero tolerance community, such as the medical community or the Department of Transportation, you can't have any. And so those are cases where a CBD isolate or a spectrum product that has had the THC removed 100% is going to be better. But the 0.3% or less THC that's in a full spectrum product in most cases is not going to do the average person any harm.
Right. I always make the comparison. It's kind of like, back when I was younger, people would say, oh, yeah, you're getting concerned if you're eating too many poppy seed bagels, a test might come back as positive for heroin. And it's just, it's pretty far off from the reality. But there's no right or wrong with CBD and with people's wellness. So it's really a matter of what the individual is looking for and understanding what's best for them. Then when you get to an isolate is where in a lab you're isolating the CBD molecules, and you're then using that to reintroduce into another format. And so it's a much more isolated, format. It's good for certain applications. We don't use it because we believe in trying to keep the whole plant in integrity as much as possible. There's this notion that nature has done it the way it has for a reason. And one of the terms I'm sure a lot of you have heard is the entourage effect. And this is the idea that the sum is greater than the individual parts. And so you have a varying range of cannabinoids in the plant, but you also have these terpenes. Terpenes are now the hot buzzword, I think, around CBD, and that's where a lot of the future of it's going, and we can get more into that. But we want to keep the integrity of that. And we also do a seed breeding program where we're working on different strains, and we like to allow the strains to dictate what's going to be in the content of the formulation.
I think that's such a smart idea to think about that. And remember, of course, everybody, that CBD is protected by the Farm Bill through because it's being grown from hemp. These products that are very high in CBD, very low in THC. Naturally, the hemp plant doesn't concentrate THC like some of the other plants within that cannabis community will. So hemp is protected under the Farm Bill and is legal in all 50 states. And the difference between the CBD and THC, I like to liken it, and I don't know what you would say, Bryan, but I like to liken it to the two sisters, where one of them likes to stay home and knit and dust the house, and the other one is out, partying it up on Friday night. So you're not going to get any kind of psychoactive effect from CBD. You get all of the hard work and all of the benefits of cannabinoid formulations, but you don't get that psychoactive effect, that feeling of getting high, the lightheadedness and dizziness that people experience with using THC.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. They're definitely closely related siblings, but very unique in their own respects.
Yeah, and even with a broad spectrum product, with a small amount of THC, you're never going to see any type of psychoactive effect. But I understand that you guys work on choosing products that are going to have a very good terpene profile. Can you talk a little bit about your terpenes and terpene selection?
Yeah, and I'm not, I'm going to be honest, I'm not the resident expert when it comes to terpenes, so I won't get too technical here, but the general overview is, we look at it for where we see the future of this space going with CBD and beyond CBD, CBG and CBN or other cannabinoids that are, coming to the forefront. Israel's doing amazing work on
really good
studying.
Work.
Yeah, and so we're looking at individual use cases, so different cannabinoids and terpenes that work best for use cases. I think the approach people are now taking is understanding, it's going beyond just genetics and what, my body tells me, but into epigenetics, where it's like, okay, what is the environment that I'm in, and how is what I put in my body and the stress I'm under and the experience I'm having going to affect how my body responds. And so we look at terpenes that are either going to help, a few of the use cases are for anxiety and just calming that nervous system. One of the things we focused on a lot when I was training in yoga studies was the, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. And the idea of, and for anyone who's not familiar, I'll just give a real top line, it's the fight, flight, or freeze moment when you're in that sympathetic nervous system state. And in today's day and age, we're overworked, we're overstressed, and we're always plugged in and on. We have this feeling, and so we have cortisol rushing through our blood, adrenaline, and the body doesn't get to drop down. And so that's the effect that I get personally, and everyone is different, right? Everyone's chemistry is different. But when I use CBD, it just helps me feel like I just drop that down. Very similar to when you do certain pranayama or breathing exercises in yoga. And so it's amazing. You just feel the body calm down. And what that is it's sending your body into the state of homeostasis. I'm sure.
It's such a great point, especially now, because, even 2 or 3 months ago, when I've had, when I've talked to people about the chronic stress that we're under and how it depletes your cortisol, and it's difficult to get it under control with just yoga breathing or with just aromatherapy or essential oils. But when you look at using a product like this and also combining it with some deep breathing techniques or your favorite exercise or some really great essential oils, one thing I love about the CBD products through Eaton Hemp is that the terpene profiles are sort of like this balance of the essential oils that help to support the already high quality CBD and help people to really come down from that fight or flight or freeze state into that parasympathetic state and be able to relax and and relieve themselves of some of that stress, because that chronic stress is just a terrible burn on the adrenal glands and a lot of pressure on your body as it depletes your cortisol and leads to all kinds of negative outcomes. So this idea of taking a product and just dropping it down, that's a great way to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a thing. And so, you know, while anxiety and stress are big parts of it, then looking at muscle aches and pains, because the other thing with stress is inflammation occurs in the body. And we could get into, obviously, the different applications from tinctures to topicals to edibles and smokable flower. But, you know, there's different ways to address these different issues that are going on, but where the future of it's going is, you know, I see there's great work being done around things like asthma or for relief from, you know, PMS symptoms and just so many different areas where I think, you know, we can just play with I see it as a way to help recalibrate our body's own chemistry. You know, you're not adding something on, you're just helping your body get back into its natural rhythm.
It really is. It restores balance and homeostasis. And the fact that there's an endocannabinoid system already in the body that's already there waiting to be activated, and that there are plants that grow naturally and relatively easily. I mean, it's not as though you have to be a master gardener to grow a hemp plant.
No, it's why they're called weed, right? I mean, like, they grow once they start. After a couple of weeks, you're not going to stop them. But I think, you know, that's a great point with the endocannabinoid system. And the way I look at it is you know, the fact that we have an endocannabinoid system and this plant is giving us these receptors for our CB1 and CB2, you know, and stimulating the system tells me that we've evolved alongside of these plants. And the fact that all of the creatures on this planet have an endocannabinoid system, you know, there's a lot deeper wisdom. Like ancient Chinese medicine has been in touch with this for thousands of years. And so it's great to be reconnecting with it. And that's what I always say is the more curious we could be around exploring it, listening to our body and trying different things, that's the most powerful approach that I've found. And
I think
fun.
you're right. You're tapping into some ancient wisdom. I mean, when we say that we've only been using this, you know, it's been prohibited for the last 100 years, but there's documentation back as far as 4,000 years where Egyptian and Asian cultures have been using it. And talking about being innovative with an old product, I wanted to definitely share your awesome pre-rolled smokables that you guys developed. I mean, you guys, I was so excited when they showed me this, because one of the things that I really love about cannabis and what's happening in that community is that there's so many different strains. So if you need something to help you focus and be calm and get your work done during the day, that's one strain. If you need something that is super good for helping you to relax and chill out at night and then have a great deep sleep, that is a different strain. Or if you're a person who gets a lot of paranoia, or somebody who, you know, there's for any type of sort of personalized issue or complexity that you have, there's a solution. And I believe that the same is true in the CBD community, but it seems like we're, you know, saying that the molecule is the molecule, and you have different products that come from different plants. What I love about these smokable products is that you're actually doing a pre-roll of one particular flower. So a person can try one particular strain of CBD and see how it works. So I want to hear every detail about these, Bryan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just piggyback on that a little bit. It's also how it works for you individually, because one person might respond to a specific strain a little bit differently than someone else's. So it's fun.
100%.
It's fun check it out. But, we just launched these a few weeks ago or a month ago. I can't even, time has lost any sense. But, what we focused on for this initial launch was one that was, more creative and uplifting, that still drops you into that parasympathetic state, but gives you an energy, and I find very, very creative energy. And so we call that Uptime. And so this is, taken from a strain of Hawaiian haze. And that's a hybrid strain. Sometimes people ask, well, is that indica or sativa? They're actually hybrids, but it's, think of it like, dogs or anything else that you're crossbreeding. They take on different traits, and then how they're grown takes on different traits. We selected, after testing a number of different strains, the two that felt the best for uplifting. And then we also have Downtime, which is sour space candy. And that's, great for just relaxing at the end of the day, relaxing, or right before bed to go to sleep. Some people, though, find that, in the morning, just to have a steady, chilled out pace, if they're really high energy or have some anxiety, it might work there too. So again, I suggest, trying and experimenting. And, then also different people, some people, I'll show you, these are 1 gram pre-rolls. We're also in the works of launching half gram 7-packs, but they come like this, and they have a nice filter to them.
You guys, they are so slick. They're really beautiful, and they're well rolled, really nice and tight. And I love the idea of having that uptime, where you have something that is calming and relaxing, but focusing, so that you can really settle down and do your work. If you're just, because the anxiety doesn't necessarily hit you at the end of the day, especially nowadays. Sometimes you wake up and just the enormity of what's happening right now on a macro level, in addition to what's happening to the individual on a micro level, on an individual level. Sometimes you just can't feel like you can even get out of bed. And this is where a product like Uptime is so terrific, to provide that calm, but also help you to focus, because you still have to get up and get after it. All of us still have to turn on our phones and our computers and get right back to work. So that type of product is so great. But then at the end of the day, when you're kind of done with all of that work, and it's important to just relax and enjoy time with your family, the Downtime is great, because we still have to live, right?
Yeah.
We still, there's a lot going on, but you still have to remember to live your life.
Absolutely. And the one other thing I want to say about the format of the pre-rolls versus tinctures, we can get into each of them, but what's unique about the pre-rolls is smoking the flower is by far the fastest way to feel the effects. And the bioavailability of it, you can speak to more of the technical aspect on this, but it's a much higher bioavailability, I think like 25% higher than the next highest form, which is the tinctures. So it's very effective.
These products were meant to be inhaled. And so the tinctures are great, but they sometimes have a flavor that you're not happy with. And these products were meant to be inhaled. The other thing I like is that we can start to get into some strain specific fun. Like in the book I'm publishing with Sterling Publications in September, we covered 40 different medical cannabis strains. And we talked all about, and not all about, I covered it a little bit, sort of, what has been crossed with what to give you really great new medicinal strains. And I think a lot of people like that historical context, or like that ancestry. Obviously everybody loves ancestry. Look at ancestry.com. People want to know where it came from. So it's really fun to actually try the Hawaiian haze or the, sour space candy, and know its ancestry, and that it's been particularly hybridized for the purpose that you're using it for.
Yeah, I think the sour space candy is a combination of sour tsunami and something else I don't recall, and then the Hawaiian haze has, I think, a white haze mixed in it with something Hawaiian. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat when you start looking back at it and see how, because also when you mix things, it's not just 1 + 1 = 2. Again, that entourage effect and how things interact, there's this serendipity, and we get these results that we couldn't have expected. And that's why we have a large greenhouse up at the farm, 15,000 square foot greenhouse that we are, growing different breeds in and really testing that. And so we're going to continue to evolve and to bring new products to the market. So we're really excited.
Oh, I love the idea that you guys are testing new hybrids because, as I was writing the book, you're like, you have this great, mom and this really great dad, and they came together and made this amazing new plant, So, it's wonderful that you're still doing that because I think that there's all kinds of opportunity for growth potential here with products that are going to, bring the particular outcome that you want into an even sharper focus and give you, a couple of great choices. So the uptime and downtime is though such a great start. So if anybody's interested in doing like strain specific smokables and you don't want to try to roll your own because that's just not something that you do, then these pre-rolled are just fantastic. Really exciting new opportunities from Eaton Hemp to try, sort of what's the latest thing in the CBD community.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying the products as much as we are. Should we touch on the other formats and what the benefits are? Do you think that makes sense?
Oh, absolutely. Because you guys have the pre-rolled, strain specific products are your newest product, but you have, of course, a full line of CBD products.
Yeah, and I have a couple of them here. We have our tinctures, which are the most classic. This is an extra strength. We also have a regular strength. Again, it depends on what the individual's needs are. And Mary's, great with her consultations for helping people to figure that out. But what we also say is, start with a small amount and build that up and see how your body responds. This is taken sublingually. So you take the dropper and put it under your tongue, hold it for about 30 seconds. It's also an effective way of getting it into the bloodstream, second highest amount, right, I believe. I'm sure you've heard of there are edibles out there that are either in gummy format or in other foods. With CBD, we as a company stay away from it. Again, I'm not poo-pooing it or saying you should or shouldn't do it, but our approach there has been based on our studies. CBD works through the digestive system differently than THC. It's not like eating a THC gummy where you're going to get this compounded effect. With CBD, you're actually getting the reverse. And so you're getting much less of it absorbed into the bloodstream. I think you lose 80% or so by eating it. And so we just typically stay away from that. We also stay away from adding any sugars or anything that's a natural inflammatory that might fight against what the natural benefits are. And then we also have our topical salves, which, I'm a big fan of this, especially as someone who's active and will end up with wrist pain or shoulder pain. Applying topically, it's different. You're not getting the same type of absorption than in the other formats, but it's localized. So you feel it right away.
I am so surprised at how effective that topical salve works. I actually have that on the dining room table upstairs because I've been trying to work on my handstand while I've been in quarantine, and I'm getting close, but it's not without a little wrist pain for sure when you invert. And so using that right before bed, and then it seems like by morning, everything is a lot better. Really,
and we get to play with some different botanical infusions here as well. So we have arnica and birch bark that are infused in the MCT oil. We don't do it as like an additive we buy off the shelf and add it in. We're actually using the plant, and it's infused in the carrier oil and then works into the formulation. So it's really effective. I think one of the things you'll notice about our products, there's a lot of CBD out there, and some of them taste really fruity, or you'll get a cherry cola flavor. That's not us. It's much more medicinal. You'll smell the plant in the product. And I personally love that. I love to smell it and to have the taste, because that's what we're connecting with, and it tells me that it's effective. But that's our approach there. But arnica is great for bruising or any types of injuries. The birch bark is great as a natural anestalgic, and so it just is great for anyone who's active or just dealing with the everyday aches and pains of getting older.
You know, it's worthwhile using the topical balms because your body naturally upregulates the CB receptors in areas where you're dealing with pain. You know, we know that if we, for example, take a biopsy of an inflamed colon and then check it for CB receptors, you'll find a higher concentration of CB receptors in the lining of that inflamed colon. So the body is upregulating those receptors so that you can go ahead and stimulate them with either the naturally occurring endocannabinoids or with phytocannabinoids, with cannabinoids that you get from plants. And then that will help to restore balance and reduce pain. So if you have an area of your body that's in pain, the topicals make sense because you're going to have more CB receptors in that site. But don't be afraid to combine a good topical with a good smokable or a tincture to where you're both getting the internal absorption and distribution, and you're also applying it topically. I would have said a year or two ago that I'm not very impressed with the topical therapies, but I have seen so many cases where my patients have gotten considerable benefit with topicals and not even using them in combination with orals or smokables. But then when they actually add a tincture or a pre-roll with a topical, there's a considerable reduction in pain and inflammation. So those are worth a try. And that's a nice prep.
Yeah, we see a lot of customers who are dealing with arthritis or just general aging. And then on the other end of it, and just, you know, singing praises with the results they're having. And then the other one is we have a lot of athletes. We sponsor Elvis Gashi, who's one of the top ranked kickboxers in the world. And, you know, he had not tried CBD before working with us. We originally were partnering on the snack side, and then he tried the CBD products. And for the tincture, he couldn't understand how well it made him sleep. He just was blown away. And then as far as, you know, they're taking a lot of impact in that sport and using the topical, he was most impressed with how immediate it was. Same thing we're talking about. It's kind of surprising because, you know, once it hits the skin, it helps to numb it naturally.
And the other thing I want to say, Bryan, can you just hold that up again and like actually take the lid off and show us? Because in a lot of cases, when you're dealing with these balms, you guys, they come in a tub and you stick your fingers in, and it's just so unsanitary that you stick your fingers in and then you get it all over your hands, and then you're washing your hands, and we're already washing our hands enough, right? And then and with this, it's more of like a big lipstick or a big chapstick, I guess. I would say,
exactly.
it doesn't look like my lipstick, but it does give you that. It's very hygienic, and it isn't wasteful because you're not dealing with the product that you got all over your hands, or you don't get it stuck under a fingernail and then you put your finger in your eye later and it's just all gooey and gross. That's a very nice delivery system, and it's pretty. I think not that you guys are all about delivering a pretty product, but I care when a product looks nice, and that I like that container.
Thank you. No, I do too. I come from a branding background, and I believe that, it should be beautiful, but not just as a superficial thing, but it should, follow that same internal philosophy. And if we're trying to, harness nature and its beauty and power in the best way, we want to do the same all the way through to the end. One of the other things about it, I'll say, is, we really worked hard on having a non-greasy formula. A lot of them that are out there, the carrier oil separates and it gets pretty greasy. And so we've been able to, really find a nice balance where it's solid, but it absorbs really well. Remembering now, I forgot to say, there's also a peppermint essential oil in there. I'm smelling it as it's on, which is nice just for building a little heat on the surface as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point to and that changes the blood flow in the area too. It's important to drive healing blood flow to the area. So things that you can do that will help to bring blood flow, help to heal things faster. So that peppermint is really nice. And you're right. It has a very nice smell. I think that's an A+ product in your line. The smokables and and that balm, those are A+ products.
Thank you. Yeah, I love always hearing people's, specific results. And, again, I would love to hear from the folks that are here today. As you try any products, please, we'll send out, contact. And, I love hearing what everyone thinks. And we're also, offering to you guys a 30-day money-back guarantee along with a discount code, which I'll give you as we wrap up. But, it's really important that, as many people try it as possible and they don't have to have the fear, because CBD is not inexpensive. And, there's a lot that goes into developing and bringing the products to market. And that's
So
why.
yeah, Brian and Finn and the team put together a Dr. Mary 15 code. So you can pop onto Eaton Hemp just for the next 72 hours and get whatever you like, as much as you like, with a 15% off using.
And actually, Dr. Mary, I'm going to up that just a little bit today on this call, and give them an even better code, because, I really want as many people to try it as possible. Nice. I see someone saying yay out there. I think that's you. So live 20 will get you 20% off. And so for the next 72 hours, use that code. Want to make it as easy as possible for people to try it out. And again, 30-day money back guarantee. So,
wow. Because sometimes you'll get a great discount code, but you can't return it. So this is great. A live 20% off code, plus you get to return it. Thank you, Brian.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you for that for my team. I have a couple of Q&As that I want to just make sure we cover quickly. And there's a person saying that they have a friend who has had epilepsy from a traumatic brain injury. She smoked for several years and has asked for something that would have longer effects. And then just wondering about a blend of a CBD strain or a specific strain that might be beneficial. I mean, I'll answer that, Brian, and see if you want to say something too, but I don't think that I know that we don't have data on specific CBD strains and how one or another strain is going to be beneficial over the other one. At this point, the research in CBD is arguing that the molecule is the same molecule in every product. And so having a different strain to protect you from different conditions is more of a personal preference at this point than it is scientifically proven. However, I think in the future we'll have better data. And certainly, like Brian had mentioned earlier, the Israeli data is so exciting, where they're coming up with different strains or different ratios of cannabinoids for management of different conditions. So stay tuned. But I think at this point, it's just the CBD that you prefer and that you will use. That's the CBD that's going to work the best for you. And then I answered this one for Rebecca. Brian, is CBD meant to be used long-term?
Yeah, look, we have an endocannabinoid system, right? And so it's there all the time. What I would say, my personal approach, again, I say everyone should try their own thing, but I never use anything just all the time, nonstop. I always find I might do, 2 months on and then take 2 weeks off. And just let the body kind of come back to its own calibration, and then I'll reintroduce it, but consciously, and see how it feels. That being said, I've been using, CBD since we launched the product, and so for many months now. And, for sleep, I absolutely love it. If I'm feeling anxious, I'll use it here and there, but not all the time. So, I would see how you're feeling, and always try removing it and see how your body responds.
That's what I love, is that you can take it if you want. Like, if you're on a lot of Western medicine protocols, you can't skip a dose or you'll have withdrawal of whatever you're using. But if you're using CBD and you decide to skip it one evening, it's not a problem. Some people have a lot more anxiety on Sunday and Monday than they do on Friday or Saturday. Or you might have like very situational anxiety, where you create an anxiety disorder around a particular experience. And that may be a place where you position it. And then another time you may not want to. For example, having dinner with your mother is different than having dinner with your mother-in-law. You know? So you might need a little different administration patterns based on who you're going to dinner with. There's a question here about the pre-rolls. Is there any lung risk with smoking? And that's a really important question, especially right now. I think if you have any underlying lung disease, it might be wise to avoid smoking anything, you know. However, the risk associated with using a pack of cigarettes a day and getting 400 inhalations a day is a totally different risk than somebody who's taking one or perhaps two inhalations of a CBD product. But any exposure to environmental contaminants has the risk of paralyzing the cilia in the lungs for at least a short period of time and making it harder for them to clean out the lungs. So if you have any concerns about using a smokable product, it might not be the time to introduce it. So there's several questions about smoking that. I wanted to ask you, and Rebecca wants to ask you too, are pre-rolls legal in all 50 states? Because I heard that there is a little pushback from people using pre-rolls because they're hard to differentiate from cannabis pre-rolls. And then how are authorities feeling about somebody pulling out a pre-roll of a hemp product?
Yeah, you know, it's still a bit of a gray area, and it's constantly changing. My partner, Dan, is much more active on the policy and legal front. But what I will say is, you know, there's the state level and then there's the federal level. So it depends on a state-by-state basis how they're looking to enforce. I've not heard of anyone having issues there, but I would say look into your local area and make sure that you're you know, legally allowed and that you're not putting yourself at risk. It's a constantly changing landscape, so I don't want to give out any misinformation here. So yeah, check on your individual state. At this time, I haven't heard anything about the federal level coming down and intervening at all. So,
you know, and I haven't either. A lot of people I know travel with whole CBD flowers, and then if they get stopped as they're going through TSA, they just, you know, say it's a cherry wine or it's, you know, Hawaiian haze, and then they're able to. But that's not something that I would do. That seems like a little. That seems like a risky thing to do, and I don't recommend that you travel with your CBD. That's still not still not a federally completely 100% legal thing to do. But all 50 states, as long as you're not transporting it across state lines, in general, you should be okay.
Yeah, and
then,
what I would add to that is one thing quickly is all of our products, you'll see they have this QR code on it.
oh, yeah.
So nowadays you just take out your camera on your phone, take a picture, it gives you a link to click, and our COA certificate of analysis for our lab reports are pulled right up. That's something that if you have a concern about if you could be carrying it with you, print it out. And so print out a copy of your lab report and put it in your bag. If anything happens, you could show that and explain it. But, you know, again, you have to be comfortable with that. But, you know, I've done that when I travel with it.
That's a great idea. I've never thought about doing that, but that's a great idea. A very, very protective of yourself. And at the very least, you can scan your product and pull it up on your phone and hand your phone over.
Exactly. And the products show that there's, you know, below the 0.3 allowed amount of THC, Delta 9. So it says it on the products as well.
Yeah, yeah. A couple of questions about panic attacks too, Bryan, and panic and anxiety. Is there a particular administrative amount that's beneficial that for CBD?
Yeah, well, so my response to that, I'm someone who, you know, when I was younger, I dealt with a lot of anxiety and did a lot of work on that. And so, you know, if I'm having a day where I'm still feeling anxious, I'll use it for that. One thing I've learned about anxiety is everybody's is unique. You know, it's plugged into our nervous system, and our nervous system holds the history of our human experience, and everyone's is unique. So I would say try, you know, experimenting, see what's best for you. The tincture is great for managing anxiety. So are the pre-rolls. But, you know, for anxiety, I typically will use, it depends. I'll use, you know, in the morning if I'm going out and feeling anxious, a little of the tincture. Again, you know, start with a quarter or a half dropper and just build up or build down based on your sensitivity. And if I'm feeling anxious where I just immediately want to have an effect to just drop me down, by far, these are the best way to do it that I have found. And again, I'm speaking about my experience. I hope that each of you will try experimenting yourselves.
You know, I think looking for a very bioavailable and rapid onset when you're dealing with panic is an important way to think. You want a product that you can get quickly, but that's also safe. You know, so these the smokable flowers sounds good. This is a funny question from anonymous attendee.
Oh, good. Oh, wow.
Is smoking the flower through a water pipe the same effectiveness as smoking the pre-rolled flower? And I would have to say, yes, you're using at that point a whole bud. I don't know that you guys create a product like where you can just buy the flower in bulk. Your flower is available in pre-roll, but
Currently,
using a flower,
we're working on that.
Using a flower through a water pipe or a bong does have quite a bit of effectiveness, and actually in the 1920s was touted as one of the best ways to manage migraine headache. So, yeah, by people at Prince College in Europe. And then Karen wants to say that she can't find the smokables on the site.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna drop a link in right now. If
Oh, that's perfect. That's wonderful.
we can move on to the next question. And I'll drop that in.
Actually, we're all set. Everything looks great. And thank you so much, Bryan, for the Live 20 link to get 20% off and the money back guarantee. That's somebody who's standing behind their product. And I love those QR codes. I love when a product is completely transparent. So I hope that you feel confident and are excited to give some of these products a try. I'm going to go fiddle with my handstand a little bit more, and then I'll be using them before I go to bed.
Look forward.
Oh, look forward. Oh, that's good advice, because I was actually like trying to keep my chin straight with but yeah, I'd like some advice. Maybe
there's the craniosacral connection between the top and bottom of the spine, and so, when you're looking forward, your pelvis is tipping back, and that's aligning it better for the handstand. Versus if you look down, you start tucking your tailbone, and it helps you to collapse that handstand, which you don't want.
So if I look forward, you want me to look down at the floor, down at my hands?
You're going to look past your hands, almost to the wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's lift the chin.
Okay.
Yeah, it might seem a little counterintuitive at first, but it's amazing how effective that is.
All right. So show me the position of my head as if you were upside down right now.
Okay. Yeah. The great thing about handstand is you could just show it as if you're standing up, right?
Yeah. So you want to look.
Yeah, so you stand up. You want to lift your chin as much as you can, so you're looking back this way.
Got it.
You look down here, you start to tuck your pelvis in this way, and it collapses. So
now, what about your lower back? Should you be arching your lower back, or should you be trying to stay straight and keeping your core nice and tight from the front?
Keep it straight, but the collapse, collapsing it is the most common thing. And so the alternative is if you're hyper mobile, you might hyperextend, and we call that banana back, in handstand, where someone's flexing so much and it's doing this curve. And so you don't want that either. So, you got to keep the core engaged, tighten your abs. And sorry, everybody else, we're turning this into a little bit of a segue.
But everybody doing inversions is super good for you, especially right now, because you get, if there's any congestion in the sinuses, you can move the congestion, and it helps you to release that congestion. It's also good for lung health and for the health of your core, and especially the accessory muscles of breathing. the lats in the back and the pectoralis muscles in front, the serratus on the sides, all of those get much stronger when you go down on your hands. So even doing a downward dog is a really great start toward an inversion posture, and you can finish there. You don't really have to go beyond a downward dog and still get a lot of the benefits of an inversion. Wouldn't you say, Bryan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many simple ways to have an inversion. I mean, you could put your take an L shape, put your legs on the bed or something, and then put your hands down at the edge of the bed. Just anything that's giving you that sensation and shifting the body state. So yeah, there's a lot of creative ways to play with it. Google around, and you could also email any questions about that as well. Feel free.
Take a couple inhalations of the Hawaiian haze and then invert.
There you go.
It's not going to hurt a thing.
You'll be nicely energized.
All right. Thank you so much, Bryan. What a great amount of time and energy you spent with us tonight. And the whole vibration was just so positive. I really appreciate you sharing all of your hard work with my community today.
Oh, I love it. It's great being here. Thank you for having me on. And thank you to everyone who's here, listening and watching. And please, Live 20, use away and ask us any questions. And remember, 30-day money-back guarantee. So no questions asked.
And go to Eaton Hemp, everybody. Fritz, Camelia, thank you so much for your comments too. And thank you, everybody.
EatonHempCBD.com is the URL for the CBD products.
All right.
I'll add it in the link as well.
Oh, yeah. All right. Oh, did we get one more Q&A? Let's make sure. Hopefully it's not a hater. Oh, can you please discuss your extraction process? Darn it, we forgot to mention the extraction process. Yeah, thank you so much, Janelle, because we actually talked about doing that before we came on. And that's so important because I love the way that that the Eaton Hemp extracts without leaving any residue on the product.
Yeah, and so we use an ethanol extraction process. And again, I'm not the expert here, but I'll tell you what I'm aware of how it works. We soak the flower and leaves in this ethanol. It's a sugarcane ethanol, and that strips the plant of all of those natural cannabinoids and terpenes. And then by heating it up and boiling that off, we do it at the level that burns off the ethanol without hurting the terpene and cannabinoid profile.
That's perfect.
And that gives us that full spectrum CBD oil. We leave it unfiltered, so it's in that state that we then use it in our formulation.
Yep, I'm very happy with the way that this product is formulated. All right, everyone, and the different products for different chronic medical conditions, insomnia, pain, anxiety, and then other conditions that are more complex that have some research behind them, like seizure and autism. A lot of this is wonderful and a little baffling when you're dealing with CBD because you don't necessarily have the administrative amounts clearly determined. You're just starting low, starting with a small amount, and then taking your best guess going forward. And I want to share with you that pretty soon we'll have a good dosing product to share with you. So like a product that will help you work with your administrative amounts so that you can keep track like electronically with your phone. But until we have that together, it's easy to do with a pen and paper. To just, what I tell people to do is write down the product they used and the amount that they used, and then set a 25-minute timer on your phone. And the timer will ping, and then you can assess where you're at compared to where you started. So just use a 0 to 10 scale and be like, right now, I'm anxious at a level of a 7. And then use the pre-roll with 2 inhalations, write that down, set your timer. And then 25 minutes later, when the timer pings, I'm at a 3 out of 10 now. And the next time you can try taking 3 inhalations instead of 2, or take 1 inhalation and just see how it works. Because sometimes your anxiety is going to be fed a little differently and it's going to respond a little differently. So it's not an absolute. But the great thing about it is that it's your ability to control how the product gets used. And I say 25 minutes, Lee, because in general, in most cases, you're going to have adequate absorption. Crossing over the blood-brain barrier, you'll get a result. I mean, I think you could set a timer for 9 minutes in most cases and get a decent result. But the the 25-minute mark, or even some people would argue a 40-minute mark, just to make sure that you give everything adequate time. What would you say, Bryan, in terms of a recommendation for when to make a reassessment after giving yourself an administration?
Yeah, look, I see this as, a constant like call and response, and using these, what I love about this type of natural plant medicine versus Western medicine is there's a dialogue. And this is what, Hippocrates, when he formed the, medical industry way back when, that was his whole thing. It wasn't about a patient just coming in and him telling them what was wrong or right. It was about them sharing their experience. And so I'd say, immediately upon taking it, just try to tune in, observe the experience you're having, depending on what format it is as well. Maybe close your eyes, take a feeler, and then, take it, for a few minutes later, then 15, 25. In the beginning, you'll have to, it depends on how your practice is. If you're in tune and in touch with your body, you'll be able to sense it quickly. If it's new to you, then take more time in the beginning. Build that vocabulary for sensation. And over time, it becomes easier and faster, where you don't even have to stop. You just note, like, okay, this is doing that. Cool. I'm going to either take more or I'm good. And it becomes kind of automatic. But just play and have fun with it. Most of all, I think, our health and wellness can be fun. We have so much anxiety around the medical field. And I think shifting that relationship is a huge opportunity as well.
Yeah, the great news is you're in control here. And so you can take as little or as much as you like with really no risk. CBD doesn't stimulate the breathing centers in the brain or the heart centers in the brain. So there's no way that you're going to slow your heart rate or slow your breathing, even if you take way too much. So it's perfectly safe to experiment around all kinds of different administrative amounts. And for some people, for more of a generalized anxiety situation, routine administration makes sense. For other people who may be dealing with, with more of a panic, or they're using it for sleep, you want to take it specific to that time. If you're using it for sleep, an hour before bed or half an hour before bed makes a lot of sense. Or if you're using it for, panic, a product that has a rapid onset of action that you can, take as needed to get that more immediate action, makes sense. But if you're using it for like a chronic pain or, a more generalized anxiety, some more consistent administrations, are more useful. I think, Bryan, we're out of time. That was such a fun hour. We'll definitely do this again.
Thank you so much. Let's definitely. I had a great time. Thanks everybody again for all the great questions, and keep them coming offline as well.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, and of course, reach out anytime. EatonHempCBD.com, live 2020, money back guarantee.
Live 20.
Live 20. Sorry, live 2020. Why did I say that? But live 20. And of course, you can reach out to me anytime for a more personalized consultation if that's something you're looking for. Oh, and we're also doing group consultations that are very favorably priced, like $15. And we limit it to no more than 20 participants, answer everybody's questions, and everybody learns from everybody else. And we just stay on until we're done. So whatever you need, I think we've got you covered. So thank you again.
Thanks, everyone.